Hey everyone, it's Donna, and I'm back with part 2 of In the Beginning, Living in Terror. Last time I was here, I talked about finding out about the food allergy and all the other food allergies that came behind it, and how I've coped with that since the beginning. But how horrible it was in the beginning because you become so terrified and afraid to eat. So today what I wanted to talk to you guys about is the medical field and medications. Now for 15 years I had nothing but a nightmare in trying to keep this under control and not letting doctors try to prescribe for me medications that were bound with corn or anything else. Now for the most part I did the best I could, because once I cleaned my system out I didn't get sick and I didn't have any health issues. But 2 months after the original allergy hit, I ended up with a dislocated pelvis. I had a friend, because my husband was out of town. She took me to the emergency room, and they literally, 2 paramedics had to get me out of the car and onto a gurney to get me inside the hospital. Well, the physician that was working at that time, when they checked me in and did my registration and everything, I gave them the list of my allergies and told them distinctly that I could not take medications because of the corn derivatives that were in them. Well, what happened next was a horrible nightmare. The doctor, he tried to say I had a kidney infection. Well, I found out very quickly, no, he said that there was nothing in my urine to even indicate any kind of bacteria because I'd cleansed my system so well. But he would not take x-rays, which if he had them take x-rays, they would have found the dislocated pelvis, and hopefully he could have found some way to help me without medication. Well, instead of doing that, I did let them give me a shot of Toradol, which if you've ever had Toradol, if you're like me, you know it doesn't even work. It's like giving you a placebo of water. And that was it. He would not do anything for me. He told me that, he asked me why I was even there. He said, there's no point to this. He said, I can't help you. And he sent me on my way. Well, he told my friend, he said, stop and get her some Advil and let her take that. And so she stopped at the store and I gave her my list of derivatives, and I told her, I said, I know that I can't take it. I said, there's no point to even going in there. And she said, well, at least let me try. Well, she went in, looked at all of the medications that had to do with ibuprofen. Every one of them had corn derivatives. She was so upset that she called the ER and asked to speak to the doctor. And she literally told him off and asked him what was he trying to do to kill me. And because he said if she takes this, she'll go into an allergic reaction and she could die. It was to that point that I didn't know what was going to happen. I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, I couldn't lay. And so finally she helped me to get home and get into my bed. And she checked, and the next morning she called a chiropractor who was in my insurance group, and she explained to him what happened with the medical doctor, and he told her to bring me in to be at his office right at noon, because that was when he opened for his afternoon hours that day. She took me over, and it was a dislocated pelvis. So after he did the x-rays, he gently put it back in place, and I ended up having to see him for 3 months. But I could take nothing for the pain. And if anyone's ever had a dislocated pelvis, you know what I'm talking about. The pain is horrific. The only thing I could do was heat and ice. And those were the only two things that helped to ease the pain somewhat. And it took 3 months to get it back in place and keep it there. So that was my first issue with medical doctors. And like I said, that was 2 months exactly after I had developed the first reaction when I almost died. And after that, I just didn't want anything to do with them. I said, they can't help me. I'm wasting their time and mine by going in. So I just made sure I stayed as healthy as I could. In my family, there's a history of heart disease. And my mother had AFib, my father had bradycardia. And I knew that eventually that would happen to me. Now, for 15 years, I have not been able to find doctors that would listen to me. I had one, he was actually a PA. I ended up in the hospital because of issues with my heart, and they tried to give me aspirin. Well, aspirin is 90% cornstarch, and I told them I'm not taking this. And he came in to see me and wanted to know why I refused to take it. So I explained it to him. He started screaming at me that there was no way I could be allergic to corn. And I literally threw him out of the room. I asked him to leave, and I asked to speak to the charge nurse. And I told her I do not want that man taking care of me. So she told the primary doctor, and so he made sure that it was him that would come in. And he understood that I couldn't take it, but he told me, he said, you do understand the risk because you can't take blood thinners, that you could throw a blood clot. Yeah, I understood that. It was just a risk I was going to have to take. Well, off and on, I'd end up in the hospital because of one issue or another with that. And it was always the same thing. So now, in 2015, I ended up in the ER, and we have a small ER here, so they can't really do a lot for you. If you have a heart issue, they will send you out. And so I had woke my husband up. I was in AFib, and it was really, it would not stop. It wouldn't, usually if I started in AFib, it would convert itself back and I was fine. This time it wasn't converting. So he took me in, and they were asking me all about my allergies and this and that, and I was telling them. And she comes in with an 500cc bag of D5W with heparin. And the heparin is a liquid blood thinner that they give you to keep you from throwing blood clots. I told her, I said, you're not putting that in me. And she said, why? And I said, because you've got D5W, which is made from corn, and I am allergic. And she goes, oh, I didn't know that. Well, the doctor did. He knew it. And he told her, he said, put it in normal saline and hook her up with nothing but saline. So that's what they did. And they transferred me to another hospital. which was a teaching hospital, and I had the most wonderful heart doctor I have ever met in my life. Of course, the heart doctor I have now, because I left that facility, I wouldn't trade him for anything either. He's just amazing. But this doctor, he was teaching a group of residents. There were about 10 residents that were following him around. And he wanted to know my history because he knew that I was allergic to corn and I had these other food allergies. And he was very interested in how I coped with that. They could give me the heparin in the normal saline. They could not use alcohol pads when they drew my blood, so they had special little sponges that were an antibacterial soap, which I didn't have an issue with, and they would rub that on my arm and take my blood. He knew that I couldn't have chemicals used in the room for cleaning because of my MCS, which is multiple chemical sensitivity. They could not use hand sanitizer and touch me. And they were very, very, it was the first time that I had ever been in a hospital situation where they listened to me. He wanted to know everything about how I had coped with the allergy, how I ate, everything, and how fast I would have a reaction. He wanted to know, and he came in the next day because I was in there and my heart was still in AFib for almost 24 hours, and they were getting ready to take me down and do a conversion to get it to go back to normal. They could not give me AFib medications. They're bound with corn. He knew he could not give me baby aspirin. He gave me the heparin drip. I had that the whole time I was in there. And I remember on the second day he came in, he kept me in there for like 3 days. Second day he came in to talk to me, and I remember him sitting down on the foot of my bed, and he said, "Do you know," he said, "we have discussed you so much in my class." He said, "We have never had a patient with these kind of allergies, and especially a corn allergy, but we've never had a patient who knew so much about what she can and cannot do." And that really made me feel good, because he told me, he said, "You have opened our eyes. We need to change the way we do things." And I was so appreciative of that, because this man travels all over the country doing lectures. And I thought, well, maybe there'll be some change starting now. And what was funny, that same day I was so hungry, and the only thing I'd even had was like a cup of tea. Now, the reason I didn't have anything was I was terrified to eat, because I knew from working in the hospital where I'd lived that all the food is processed, and you can't hardly find even one thing that is not processed with corn. And so I told him I was so hungry, and the kitchen sent me up a tray, and it had a hamburger on it. Okay, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking to myself, I just know this is processed. And but I was so hungry, I decided I would go ahead and give it a try. And so I took one bite, and it seemed to be okay, and took a second bite. And my nurse's tech was in there doing my blood pressure, and all at once my throat started swelling and I couldn't breathe. I never saw doctors hit a room so fast in my life. The one resident who was caring for me that day, he was like in panic mode. And they come running in and they gave me shots, and immediately calmed down. And then they came in and did a breathing treatment to make sure that my lungs were clear. And the head doctor, he came in and wanted to know, okay, what happened? And so I told him. And I said I knew better than to eat it. But I said I was so hungry, I thought I'd at least try. And he was amazed at how fast that the resident even responded. The resident was terrified. He thought, sure, he told me, he says, I thought you were going to die right here. And he said, and not from the AFib. But that was the first time I finally found doctors who listened to me. Every other doctor I had visited, for one reason or another, they would all tell me the same thing. Why are you here? We can't help you. And I had one doctor, she told me flat out, she said, if I can't write you a prescription, I can't do anything for you. And I was in shock because I had grown up with doctors who would examine you, who would try to find what was going on without the use of medication, and then if you needed medication, they would find what you could possibly take. It's not that way anymore. If they can't write you a prescription, they can't help you. And so I was really frustrated. So when we moved to this area, I had to change my primary because I was like 60-some miles away from the one I was seeing, who wasn't doing anything for me. And so I found one here, and he's been amazing. He has helped me so much, and he's always on top of things. When he tries to find prescriptions I can take for whatever is going on, he researches now. Used to be, I would be the one to do all the research, and then I would tell them whether or not it was feasible for me to take. He does it for me. He'll look it up right when I'm sitting there, and he'll say, oh, you can't have it. It's got this, this, and this. And I just appreciate him so much because he has done so much for me. And he's gotten me into good doctors for when he's had to refer me. I had to have total knee replacements. The surgeon that did it, he found out the only medication I could take for pain that did not have corn in it was Dilaudid. Well, I don't like taking any medication for pain because I don't like being out of control. And two, it got to a point when I had my hand surgery in December, that was the only thing they could give me, and it got to a point where I was starting to hallucinate. And I said, no, I'm not taking this. So I would endure the pain rather than take the medication. And he was really good about it. He knew that they could not give me any D5 or dextrose or anything like that, or glucose. They made sure it was all saline. They made sure that the liquid antibiotics they gave me was in saline. They had no problem with my surgeries using normal saline. And I've had 5 surgeries in 2 years. And every physician that I have had, heart doctors, the orthopedic doctors, I've had 2 different ones there, they have not had a problem. They are very agreeable. They want you to talk to them now. They want you to tell them exactly what you can and cannot do. And so my health care is being managed very, very well because the doctors I have found are listening. And they're trying to help me to manage this without giving me anything that could endanger my life. And I'm very appreciative for that. Up until 5 years ago, I was just so frustrated and so aggravated because nobody cared and nobody would listen. I actually, where we had lived before, you don't get sun that often. So I had a problem with vitamin D levels. They were very, very low. And so I had went to the local Walmart where we lived to get vitamin D. Well, of course, I'm reading every bottle for vitamin D, and every one of them used corn oil or some other corn derivative. And I had the pharmacist, he came out to ask me what I was looking for, and I told him, and he said, so you have a corn allergy? And I told him yes. I said, I've had it for this amount of years. And I said, everything you buy has corn derivatives in it. And he goes, they do? This is a pharmacist who you would think would know what the inactive ingredients are in medications or vitamins or whatever. And I showed him on different bottles exactly what the corn derivatives were. And he looked at me, and it was like a look of horror on his face. He said, oh, he said, my son is allergic to corn, and I've been giving him chewable vitamins. He said, he says, I could kill my son. He was so shocked. And this is the thing, when you go to pharmacy school, they tell you all about the medications and how they're to be distributed. You know, you learn how to do prescriptions, how to find everything that they need to know, except inactive ingredients. In my thinking, if you're going to be a pharmacist, you need to learn what inactive ingredients are in the medications. That way, when a patient who is allergic to those inactive ingredients comes in with the prescription, you can find the safest medication for them. And it's amazing because the pharmacist that takes care of my prescriptions now, where we live, she's awesome. Every time I get a prescription in there and she knows it's me, she immediately researches to see what the inactive ingredients are, and she has actually called the doctor to tell them she cannot take this. And then she has suggested to them what medications were safe so that they could get me the right thing. So it just shows that by being our own advocate and pushing our doctors, pushing our pharmacists, letting them know, hey, we have to do things this way. We need your help so that we don't ingest something that could possibly kill us. So it's been a long, hard road. And for 15 years, like I said, I just wanted to give up. Or not 15 years, but up to, let's see, I've been like this for 13 years of getting it to where now the doctors are listening to me. The doctors are doing everything in their power to make sure that what they give me is not harmful in an allergic way. And I don't worry when I have to have a procedure because I know when they put me out that I'm going to be fine, because they're not going to use anything that has corn derivatives in it that are going to harm me. So it's a case of you got to keep on those doctors. You've got to make sure they know this is what is happening with me, and this is what I need from you. And for me, when the first heart doctor told me what he did, of how much I helped them, I sat and cried because of the fact someone was finally listening to me. I'm not crazy. I'm not a hypochondriac. These allergy reactions are real, and they need to realize that. And I'm happy to say that where I've been the last 5 years, they're all listening. And it's like he said, we can all take a note from you. He said, because you know what you're talking about. And he said, you have made it this far because you have taken control. And that's exactly what we, each and every one of us who are dealing with this corn allergy and other food allergies, I mean, you have to take complete control. If you don't, who knows what could happen. You know, one time you could accidentally be given something that takes your life over something so simple that it's not life-threatening. So I wanted to be sure and share all this with you guys, to let you know that it is possible to find medical help that will listen to you and watch everything that's going on to make sure that you're not having a reaction, to make sure you don't get anything that's going to harm you. And as I said, they've been great about it, because every time I've been in the hospital, even for my heart procedures, they never ever use anything on my skin that is corn-based. They don't give me medications that are corn-based. They make sure that what they do is safe. So just keep searching, keep pushing to get them to listen to you. Pharmacists are a big one, because we get our medications. Anytime I get a prescription, I ask them flat out. If I can't find it online, I ask them flat out, what are the inactive ingredients? And if they don't have them there, they will look for them and tell you. So, you know, it's another case of advocating for yourself and making sure that everyone knows, hey, this is me. I'm a human being. I need help, and I want you to help me. So just keep it up, guys. I'll be back again soon with another video. I'm going to be doing a request to make the butterscotch pie that I shared a little short video on. I will be making that next and sharing that with you guys on how to do that and have it corn free. So until next time, guys, take care of yourselves, keep safe, and we'll see you soon. Bye.